The 4-1 loss to St. Louis certainly cemented the idea that the Flames are running on fumes.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I am your host, Jess Belmosto, and thank you so much for joining me today. Today, we're going to be unpacking this first half of January and just how tough it has been for the Flames and what is spiraling. And of course, we got to talk about them consistently being inconsistent, because I truly feel like those are two words that would describe the last 5 years of the Flames. But make sure you are subscribed to Locked On Flames wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We are here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, your Calgary Flames every day. So they are 3-4-0 this month. They just have not had it easy. Not necessarily easy, but it has not been their month. Obviously the month started out with them at home, losing 5-3 to Utah. Not great. And then followed that up with the 4-1 loss against Nashville. And then they had what was supposed to be the mom's trip out in California for a little bit, but that was shortened after their 3-2 overtime win against Anaheim because of the fires picking up. So there was some time off between the 7th and the 11th when they beat the Kings at home 2-1. And they are on the road. They wrap up their 4-game road trip tomorrow against the Winnipeg Jets. This team confuses me so much, because I feel like even though it's a small sample size, you can still see the inconsistency in their scoring, the goaltending, and it just, like, beating up on Chicago to turn around and get beat up on 2 games in a row by the same team is tough. I feel like it's got to be a little hard, a little bit demoralizing to be just not good. I think it's hard to get excited for it. I'm sure. I can't imagine how difficult it is to go out there and give your all night after night after night and not see success. And maybe it's because I'm not naming names, I'm just throwing out ideas. But maybe it's because certain players just generate a lot of turnovers. Maybe it's because they can't win puck battles or poor defense. There's no game breaker. There's no one that you can kind of be like, okay, this player is going to score or has like a really solid opportunity to generate offense, like you saw with Tkachuk and Gaudreau. And you're always going to have that to reference. And I feel like you're going to be chasing that for some time until you find talent like that, or at least pretty comparable to that. It's not exactly fun watching this team night after night after night. Basically it's like Groundhog Day. It's the same mistakes over and over again. It's the turnovers, it's the giveaways, it's misplaying the puck, it is overpassing, which they have gotten better about, I will say. But there's just things that are not getting ironed out along the way that should be really just not as frequent as they should be. Like, the game where they took 9 penalties against Ottawa and they were consistently racking up, 3, 4, 5, 6 trips to the penalty box a night, and their penalty kill being shattered and slaughtered every night. Like, that's That has thankfully gotten better. They still have the third worst penalty kill in the league, but it's not necessarily it's the personnel that they have to work with. And that is what it is. You aren't going to be able to fix that until you start bringing in higher end talent, not even higher end talent necessarily, but just players that are more defensive minded, I guess is what I would say. But with this start to the month, the Flames are still technically in a playoff spot. They're in the second wild card spot. I don't think anyone expected them to be here at this point in the season. I certainly didn't. I thought that they would be circling the drain with teams like Anaheim, Chicago, San Jose, Philly. I thought Columbus would be down there too. So, I mean, it's not about them overperforming necessarily. I think it's just what has occurred in the Western Conference. The Avs have not been playing well. Vancouver is a mess. It is just, they have a lot of issues they need to work out there, as well as on ice and off ice. And I think you're going to start seeing some shakeups in terms of trades, not necessarily involving the Flames, but to try to generate something before the season is too long gone. I did read today that the Flames are potentially looking at an inexpensive rental. For what? I don't really know, because this team is not going anywhere in the playoffs should they make it. It's just, the start to this month has just been really demoralizing. I think that that's a really good way to sum it up. And I understand wanting to be a losing team because you need the better draft picks. I understand that. But you also have to think about what this does to the locker room, right? I don't know about you guys, but when I have a few tough days at work, in a row, back to back to back, I don't want to talk to my coworkers. I don't want to talk. I don't care what anyone has to say. I am sour as a grape. I'm miserable. And I'm sure that can happen in certain locker rooms, and it's not great. So coming up next, we're going to talk about the uncharacteristic performance from the Flames last night. More so Dustin Wolf and Mackenzie Weegar, coming up next here on Locked On Flames. From the first whistle to the final dive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 in bonus bets, or $300 to keep the action going. FanDuel is super easy to navigate. As a grandmother and technologically illiterate millennial, I appreciate the variety of the bets, the easy navigation, and just a way to keep the game fresh. Plus, when you win, you can get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings, whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some excitement to the playoffs. FanDuel has you covered. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thanks, everyone, for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We're here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week. Your Calgary Flames every day. I know that we all know that this team struggles on the road. This isn't new. This isn't anything revolutionary. This isn't breaking news. This is something that has been an issue for them all season. And I mean, if you think about it, they went through most of November without a win on the road, and the win that they had in that first and really only road win that they had for a while there came at the beginning of the month against Montreal. So, this team just, I feel bad saying they can't stay out of their own way, because while that's true, I also don't know if there's really any other direction for them to go. Last night's game against St. Louis just slipped away almost as quick as the game started. It was it was 3 goals in the first period. Um, it was not pretty. Dustin Wolf had some really odd not saves, but he would typically have saves. Like, it was just an uncharacteristic performance from Wolf. Like, I don't know. It just he didn't look like himself. It was like Dan Vladar like kind of possessed his body and was like, here we go. But the game just spiraled out of control so fast. And the first big thing was, of course, Mackenzie Weegar misplaying the puck. And a lot, that led to that first goal. And the floodgates pretty much opened after that. And, Kevin Rooney struggled as well. And thankfully the Flames went down 3-1, or sorry, 3-0. And then Sharon Govich, of all players, scored to to cut the deficit. But it was just such a weird game. Is it because, it's a decent road trip? Is it because they're tired? Because players aren't giving 100%? Is there, there's been a bug going around the NHL, so maybe, you're bound to pick up germs along the way, no matter how many times you wash your hands. But it just felt like a very strange game. It was kind of like it felt like an out-of-body experience watching that game. And honestly, I thought that Jonathan Huberdeau was going to be the one to score a goal, because that is something that feels like clockwork lately. And it kind of stinks that it didn't happen. I fully expected that game to be a lot closer than it was, because they'd had that day off and were in the same city. So it's not like they had to travel anywhere. They could just kind of hang out at the hotel or in the local area and rest and do what they needed to do. But no time zone changes. Like, you're in same place for a few days. So it just felt strange. But back to Dustin Wolf. This is what confuses me, because he has allowed more than 4 goals on 9 occasions this season. It's like 5 if you do 5 or more goals, which is still that's still a decent amount. But then you also have to put into perspective that the defense in front of him and just the liabilities on the ice at that time. And he's still a rookie. He's only a rookie. He is learning. He is, getting up to speed at the NHL level. And this is typically the time of year where we see those rookies kind of, I don't want to say fizzle out, but they kind of hit a wall and plateau a little bit. But I'm confident that this is just kind of a blip on the radar for Dustin Wolf. I don't think that this is necessarily anything to be concerned about. What you should be concerned about is the lack of offense. They used all their goals against Chicago, and I want to see more of it. I want to see them driving the net hard. I want to see them trying to generate chances. I want to see them shooting the puck. There were a lot of times where this season as a whole, just consistently being outshot. And like, you'll watch a whole 10 minutes of the game and you're like, oh, they haven't registered a shot yet. And then meanwhile, their opponent has like 8. And it's just like, what are we doing? And when the Flames come out and dominate and have control, you know that it's going to be a good game. And putting together a strong 60-minute effort night in and night out is a difficult task, especially for a good team. But when you are a team that does not have those high-end talent level players filling up your roster, it's got to be even more exhausting. And I feel like they did go on a heater to start the season. They had a good run. They've gone on heaters and then just completely fizzled out. And I feel like at this point they really are running on fumes. And it's not necessarily anything that they can do more other than change personnel. And you're not doing that right now because you're telling everyone you're not selling at the deadline. But is that something you should consider? Is it? Because I don't necessarily feel like we're getting the full experience for the Flames. Coming up next, we're going to talk about this team that is running on fumes and kind of what they need and how can they improve their game against not just bad teams, but good teams as well, here on Locked On Flames. Thanks everyone for hanging out with me on today's episode of Locked On Flames and making the show part of your day. I greatly appreciate it. Like I mentioned earlier, consistently inconsistent are the 2 words or the phrase that I would use to describe the Flames and really the last 5 years of the state of the Flames. I've been covering them. Next month makes 5 years. And I feel like they really only have had one true Stanley Cup caliber team. And that was, of course, the 2021-2022 season under Daryl Sutter. And that season was so special. And I don't know if you're ever going to see a season like that with these players. The answer is highly unlikely because you don't have the Matthew Tkachuk's, the Johnny Gaudreau's, the Chris Tanevs. Well, I would say you don't have Jacob Markstrom, but you have Dustin Wolf, and he's doing very well for himself. But you don't have that same level of consistent offense, the high-end personnel, the speed. You do. Your 4th line, I would argue, is better than the 4th line they had that season because it was Lucic, Trevor Lewis, and Brett Ritchie, Nick Ritchie, someone at some point, like whoever it was, and they just skated around. They didn't really do anything. I don't want to hear anything about how useless this Flames 4th line is when they actually try to go out there and do their jobs versus just skate around. I think that you have a long way to go before you find yourself in another truly competitive position where you are the true underdog, but it's also from a place of, they've missed the playoffs these last 2-3 years and they've been working really hard to acquire good talent, and no one was really expecting them to do anything because they're still such a young team, and then they go on a tear and make the playoffs and things like that. But I think a big issue for this team is you never know what you're going to get. You don't know if you're getting a 20-minute performance or if you're getting a full 60-minute performance that is standing ovation worthy, or like last night After the Blues' second goal, I turned my television off and walked out of the room. I was so appalled and disappointed. And then the third one, I turned it back on after composing myself. And then the third goal happens, and I'm like, okay, this is the team. This is the Calgary Flames experience. And I want to see, I don't want to say allowing goals is fine, because it's not. That's not how you win games. But allowing goals can be fine if you can generate the offense. And to come back into the game and expect to score 4 goals in one period is absurd. You have to hang in there. You have to walk the same walk as them and keep it kind of tit for tat going in the same order. And you're playing at the same level or just completely dominating. You can't play from behind. It is exhausting. And that is why this team is running on fumes and empty, and just there is no gas left in the tank. And there's still 3 months of hockey left, regular season hockey. And I don't know what the rest of the season holds. Ryan Pike put out a tweet yesterday or the day before that the Flames have the 5th hardest schedule on the second half of the season, which is kind of crazy considering like what one year recently they had like the easiest second half of the season, which wouldn't that be nice? But I do wonder what this second half is going to look like. What does this post All-Star break team look like? What does the trade deadline look like? I mean, Conroy wants a center. What is he going to give up to get that? And is it going to be someone that is more than a rental and a little bit more expensive? Like, I'm just saying, I don't necessarily think this is who they'll go after, but Dylan Cousins, I think, more likely than not, the Flames are going to be a third team involved in a lot of trades. I think that they're going to be a broker, as people call them, because they aren't they have the cap space and could really benefit from a few second-round draft picks if that's what teams are giving. But to me, you can sacrifice a goal or two if you can make up for it. If you go out there early in the game and the first goal gets away from you, okay? Let's use last night for example. Bad play leads to the opponent's goal. Okay. You can't have your defense being shaky and allow that to happen. And you have to have your offense step up and get it right back. If that happens and say the Flames go ahead and it's, a 3-2 or no, sorry, a 2-1 game, you have that extra insurance goal. Okay, great. Now it's 3-1. You can have shaky goaltending. You can get away with questionable defense. You don't want to. You want to have a cohesive game the entire time, but that's not realistic. You have to figure out how to get this offense going, and I don't just mean in spurts. You need it to be consistent. You can't use all your goals for the month in one game. You have to spread them out. And I'm hoping that the addition of Rory Kearns really gets the juices flowing for some of these guys, because he has a lot of potential with this team and as an NHLer. So I just want to see, if things start, say in tomorrow's game, Winnipeg is a good team. Say the Flames go up 1-0 and then the Jets tie it. I want to see the Flames score 2 more goals before they allow another. I think those extra insurance goals, they're not easy to get. I mean, let's be honest, they can't even do enough to cut a deficit in half last night. So I don't necessarily expect them to magically find their game in Winnipeg. However, I do expect them to try and at least give us an A plus performance, because you need 60-minute efforts. You need to find creative ways to score, and you really need to just have confidence when you play. Fake it until you make it. And that'll do it for today's episode of Locked On Flames. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me today and making the show part of your day. I greatly appreciate it. We will be back on Monday, recapping the weekend and any news that breaks between now and then. Until then, stay safe, stay warm, stay cool, stay dry, stay hydrated, and moisturized. And remember to be kind.